guys, thank you for opening the video. I'm Don Ford. This is Progressive Insider. We've been doing a long series of interviews with progressive candidates all over the country, and we have a real interesting one for you tonight. We have an independent running for Senate in Arkansas. Dan Whitfield, how are you doing?
I'm well. How are you doing?
I am hanging in there. I'm hanging in there. You know, these afternoon interviews have such a different vibe than our early morning interviews, so we're gonna really have some fun here. So, Dan, you're running as an independent. Now, when I hear independent in Arkansas, for some reason, I always think soft libertarian, right? But that's not the case with you. You're actually seem like you have a pretty progressive platform. You want to talk about that?
Yeah, I actually consider myself a progressive independent. And we do have a really unique campaign right now because there's actually no Democrat in our race. So it's Tom Cotton, a Republican incumbent, against myself, an independent, and then a libertarian candidate. So it's going to be a very interesting one.
Yeah, that's very interesting. So the Democrats didn't even bother to put up a candidate. I mean, Arkansas is considered a fairly red state.
Well, the Democrats did put up a candidate, but the GOP pulled some shenanigans on him and got them out. So what kind of happened was last May, the GOP found out some dirt on our Democratic candidate. And they actually held on to that dirt until 1 hour after the filing deadline on November 11th. And after the deadline passed, they put out a press release saying, we're launching an investigation into FEC fraudulent filings. And then 1 hour later, the Democrat dropped out and the filing deadline had passed and there's no Democrat in the race.
That's amazing. I mean, it's not, I'm not happy that it happened. It's good for you. But I definitely think that there was a conversation there about the tricky maneuvers of Republicans. You know, we kind of, the Democrats have this moral superiority towards the Republicans because they think they're just so much better and smarter, which in some aspects is true. But there is a cold-hearted cutthroatedness that comes from Republicans where they pull scary, effective maneuvers at it's not even the 11th hour, that's the 13th hour, right? When you can't do anything to change it.
Yeah.
So it really brings a lot to mind about why it's important to vet candidates and what Republicans are ready to do. So is there anything more to that story? Because I feel like that's it.
Well, actually, so, you know, basically the GOP is trying to get Tom Cotton to run unopposed because they know that he has very low numbers here. He's not very favorable, and they need to have him in the Senate. So last year, they actually tried to prevent the Libertarians from getting ballot access, and the Libertarians had to sue the Secretary of State for ballot access. They increased the Libertarian signature requirements by almost 300%, from 10,000 up to 26,700. So the Libertarians were able to sue, and they got the ballot requirement down to 10,000, and they got their signatures. So there will be a Libertarian candidate. They got the Democratic candidate out, and after he dropped out, they even put out another press release gloating about how that was their strategy the whole time. So, I mean, they weren't trying to hide it. They were just very openly, you know, corrupt about it. And
I guess it's, patiently waiting to strike is the way I see that, which is that cold-heartedness. Like Democrats get so excited about making their move, they can't wait on a plan that takes 6 months.
And I just think it was really unethical and undemocratic the way the whole thing went down.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
And then, so
what about you though? What about you? How do you get on the ballot as an independent in Arkansas?
So my primary is a little bit different as an independent. I needed to get 10,000 signatures between February 1st and May 1st. Now, where we came into a problem was when our governor issued an executive order putting us into a state of emergency on March 12th. He enabled social distancing guidelines, got rid of any gatherings more than 10 people. So it really hurt our signature collection time. Now, unfortunately, I was only able to get 6,514 signatures. So I did not meet the 10,000 requirement. So we got 65% of what we needed in about 60% of the time. Well, I'm sorry, about 40% of the time because we lost about 60% of the time. So we did great. I had more than 400 volunteers helping. And due to COVID-19, we're in a lawsuit right now against the Secretary of State for ballot access.
Right, because you're going to sue saying that they should have changed the requirement. And since the Secretary of State has already been sued once successfully, it seems like the door is open if you get the right judge or the same judge even.
We actually got the same judge that the Libertarians got last year. Right. So I'm pretty confident it's looking really good right now. I mean, it was a whole process. Originally, I actually called up all the other independent candidates in Arkansas And there's only 8 of us. One of them, all their contact info didn't work. One of them didn't answer, but I was able to get the other 5 independents to sign a letter I drafted to the Secretary of State, just asking for relief, asking for a signature reduction, an extension, you know, some way, a digital ballot access, things like that.
Most states have created a digital ballot process or waived. Washington was like, who wants to run for office? Pew, pew, pew.
Yeah, so I mean, we tried, and we sent our letter to the Secretary of State. Oh my, poor Gimbal. And the Secretary of State never responded. And after a few weeks of them not responding, I reached out again, and they said they did not have the authority to do it. So then we sent a letter to the governor.
You're like, wait a second. So the Secretary of State doesn't have power to do something involving elections in your state. Who exactly is supposed to, I mean, is it a constitutional issue? Is it a, really, you're going to need
it doesn't make much sense, honestly.
No, it doesn't.
So, and then I started digging into it.
They're basically just passing the buck, right, at this point.
Yeah. So after I got all the independents together and we did that, still no response. So eventually I hired a lawyer, and I hired the same lawyer that had represented the Libertarians, because he's also represented independents in the past year and helped them get ballot access. We have a pretty good case.
So what you did, that's really important. We talk a lot about strategy here, right? And so what you did, and I like to speak about it in the past tense, not the future tense, because we don't want to give away your like secret strategies. We talk about things that you've done successfully, right? And I feel like you really modeled an existing successful strategy in enacting your initial strategy. So it wasn't even like you had to make a plan. You kind of just had to follow the directions.
Yeah, and he already had, you know, he's got the experience that we needed. So again, I'm really confident about our case, but the entire process of having to go through this has been a real detriment to my campaign, because we don't know if we have ballot access yet. So we have a lot of donors who are like, well, should we donate? Should we not donate? I have a lot of volunteers that are trying to donate a lot of their time and help us get known. Right now, I'm sure you've heard, and the media is running along with, Tom Cotton is running unopposed. So that's kind of been the headlines that have been fighting against this.
That's the Dan Whitfield blackout. Is what we're saying.
Yeah, 100%. And
you said there were other independent candidates, right? You said there's an independent primary then?
Well, so there are other independent candidates for state legislative positions.
Oh,
not for the United States Senate.
So it's just 3 candidates in this race: the Libertarian, Cotton, and you are fighting for ballot access. And then the people that signed those things were independent members running for state legislature, and they were trying to acknowledge the same requirements.
Yes, sir. Yeah, because they've actually had problems getting ballot access as well. I had one of the independents, Miss Sandy Ferrer, and she only needed 400 and some odd signatures. In early March, she turned in 800, and she sent me an email the other day saying that the Secretary of State gave her less than a 50% validation rate, and she was 17 short.
Yeah, so, that'll drive you crazy. The signature validation rate, and you're into a constitutional issue, but the other problem is there's really no oversight in how those things are handled. So a lot of times when they do signatures, they can cut them out for any reason they want. They can literally be like, this is how many they need to get through, and this is how many extra they have, and just move a couple over and go 17. And that's how easy it is. It's crazy. And you have to deliver them all at once, right? That's the other thing. You can't deliver them. Yeah, see, in California, we can deliver them in stacks. So what you do is, so what you do is you deliver half of them, enough to qualify, but like a couple over. And then somebody might try to disqualify those. But then you come back and you bring another stack of like 200 or way more than you need. And then that person isn't trying to disqualify you. They just qualify those and move on. And so that's a way to get around that. But most states shut that down and make it so you have to do them all at one time. And then it makes it impossible to do anything. And you can't even sue for oversight because there's no jurisdictional rights because election, the Constitution is just not clear enough about election stuff. It's just
unfortunately, you are correct.
It's too clear about some stuff and not clear enough about other stuff. So.
Yeah, and I mean, it's really difficult. Like, they actually changed the laws on us this year. So last year, as an independent, you have a 90-day window, but you could begin on January 1st. So you could collect from January 1st until March, and then you would have a 30-day window to collect your signature sheets, get them verified, and turn them in. where now you have to begin on February 1st and turn them in by 12 o'clock noon at the Capitol on May 1st. So realistically, I had to leave my house about 5 o'clock in the morning to drive down there. I turned in my signatures, and when I got back that evening, I already had, more signatures in my P.O. box that I was unable to get that day. So I don't even have a full 90 days. I've really got 89 days. What I would like to see them do is give you the full 90 days and then require you to turn them in maybe on May 2nd, the day after the deadline or something like that. But they have made it difficult. But again, I'm pretty confident with our lawsuit. We are going to have ballot access. So it's going to be a very interesting race.
My question for you. Why didn't you run as a Democrat?
Well, I'm not a Democrat. If anything, I was actually a registered Republican for 12 years. I grew up in California in a very conservative, heavy law enforcement military family. And, Bernie Sanders woke me up to the corruption of the two-party system. I started to do research, and I started to see how we have legislators that are taking money from the same billionaires that are giving to their opponents, that are giving money to Republicans, to Democrats. And we've gotten into this whole duopoly system where it doesn't matter if they're Democrats or Republicans, they're still working for the same billionaires. And we saw that just the other day, I believe yesterday, when we had 10 Democrats vote to allow the FBI to monitor our browsing data without a warrant. That's not a very democratic thing to do, to give away your privacy and your freedom.
I think they got jealous of the CIA having constant access to everything. We want in on that. I think that's what was going on.
Man. Yeah, I've been posting about that. We need to get rid of the Patriot Act. We need to make sure, one of the things that's on my policy is I really want to amend our private internet data so that it is our own personal property. We shouldn't allow our internet service providers to monitor, store, and then sell our data to third-party advertisers. I don't think that that's a very good idea at all, and we should have some kind of private.
That's not an issue we hear people talk about enough about, because how much profit is all those free websites, Facebook, all these things. At the end of the day, I'm grateful we get to use them. That's nice, but we don't own that data that we create.
Oh,
there.
no.
We don't own that data. So all the things you're doing. Matter of fact, there was something going around for Facebook where they're now showing you the data they collect when you're offline, and you can stop them from doing it. And
Yeah.
we started sharing it, and I thought it was another one of those Facebook scams, and then I went and looked. I'm like, oh my god, there it is. Oh my god, what is that? Oh my god.
Yeah, I did that just last week.
Yeah. Oh my god. Oh, Facebook. No, it's not true. So, yeah, no, I think it's a really important issue that people do really need to get serious about, and I'm glad to hear as a candidate that you're taking that up. You also said you're really into Medicare for all, which is not something I hear a lot from former Republicans.
So Medicare for all is extremely important. For 100 years, we've been trying different private options. And we know for sure the number one cause of bankruptcy in America is medical debt. And the biggest problem with that is that 70% of those people have medical insurance. They're hardworking Americans. They're going to work every day. They're paying their bills. They've got health insurance. They're doing everything right. And then they can get really sick and lose everything. And that's just not, we don't need a for-profit healthcare system. We need to put people's health first. That's just part of the pursuit of happiness, life, and liberty. We have to have not just accessible healthcare, but affordable healthcare. And Medicare for all is the answer. In my opinion, is the answer. And then the opinion of a lot of very intelligent people who have, spent their entire lives researching single payer system. So we're the only modernized nation that doesn't have a single payer system right now. And there hasn't been a single nation that's gone to single payer and has gone back to a private option. And there's a reason for that. With Medicare for all, I think the biggest, stigma to it is that there's a lot of misinformation about it. A lot of people are like, it's socialism, nothing's free. How are we going to pay for it? But the thing is we know how we're going to pay for it. It's not free, and we are going to pay for it. It's going to be about 4% of your income after $29,000. So here in Arkansas, the average household income is $40,000 a year. $40,000 a year. It's not that much. We actually still have counties with a household income of $25,000. So at $40,000 a year, that means the average Arkansan family will pay $440 per year to cover their entire family, with no premiums, co-pays, insurance, deductibles, none of that stuff. That's going to save people so much money. My wife and I, we paid 18% of our income to healthcare last year, and that was just premiums and deductibles and copays. I mean,
like a lot.
It is a lot of money. I mean, the health industry is just robbing us blind, and they're going to continue
in
doing
LA,
it.
they always say that your rent should be a third of your income. That's literally
In LA, you must be making a lot of money then.
Well, it usually ends up being about half and or all of your income. But the point is that you're talking about 18% of your income.
And now the 30%. So now you're at 50%. Now you have gas. Now you have food. Now you have clothing. Now you have utilities.
Yeah, where does it all go? I mean, where does this all come from? How do you? And that's the other problem is when we're cashing out, everything isn't like when they're selling us stuff now. They're not looking at it as like, how can I give them an effective product? They're looking at the average wealth, the pie that the average American has, and how much of that percentage can they get before people revolt to the idea of it. So they've decided they can tax you of as much to 18%. It reminds me a lot of tithing from the old days. You know what I'm saying?
Uh-huh.
It does. Oh, he's playing with his background. It's happening.
Sorry, I figured I'd throw my logo on there for you.
Change it back right now, only because it'll be jarring to people if it switches in the middle of you.
Oh, okay. I apologize. I should have done that in the beginning.
I like your actual background with the Dan Rowe back here. Carrie, please note the time. That's just editing notes. We just
Sorry, I apologize.
No, it's fine. It's fine. Everyone does those things. So let's see. You're an independent candidate. You are former. So you're definitely not a Democrat, and you don't see yourself as a Republican.
So I'm not a Democrat. I'm an independent because I firmly believe that
No. I asked you a question about the Republican Party because we need to understand this better. I have a lot of theories about rebranding to get Republicans on board with ideas like Medicare for all and other stuff like that. But you talking about being a registered Republican for years and all this stuff. I wonder. And you're saying you're identifying with leftist policy, and so I'm just where do those two things align, and how can we learn from that to be more effective in what we do?
So, I mean, what had really happened was there was a catalyst moment in my life. Bernie Sanders woke me up to the corruption. And once I started to see
you were a Republican up until like 2016 when Bernie started running?
Yeah.
I mean, it's cool. Don't get me wrong. I'm just trying to get an accurate time frame to understand. Yeah, sure.
I wasn't very political. I didn't pay a lot of attention to politics. I just kind of fell into the mainstream media like most people do. And, it took that moment for me to wake up and, kind of step back and start looking outside the box. And once I started, oh, am I still there? Sorry, I got a call.
You blinked out for a second.
So once I started to see, what was really going on, I started looking at policy rather than party. And I started looking at how policies affect us. And that's why I really try to put policy above party. I'm an independent because I believe that a representative should answer to their constituents and not a political party. That's the whole point of representation. We are supposed to be a representative republic. We're not technically a democracy. We're kind of a hybrid of the two. But we're neither of those anymore. We don't have any democracy. It's not like we vote for our presidents. It doesn't matter if you vote for Biden or Trump. The electoral college is still going to choose the president in the end. And then as far as a representative republic, we have these representatives, I'll quote that, little air quotes, they're not representing us. They're taking huge sums of money from billionaires and then voting on legislation that helps their special interest donors while hurting us. And that's why I'm running against my opponent. He took $8.5 million from the Koch brothers. $8.5 million from the Koch brothers.
I really want to, say to everyone listening how important what he's saying here in the big picture is. There's a lot to unwrap and a lot to unpack it and to really get the scope of the problem with what these candidates are doing. So, it's, especially with the Koch brothers, just mentioning the Koch brothers is so distracting.
Oh, man.
It's the Koch brother now, just for the record.
Yeah, the last one.
We got to start getting that absolutely straight. So, let's switch a little bit. Same idea, different thing. So policy over politics. So you said something to me in our pre-interview, and I've heard this before when I've been to other states in that region,
Mhm.
that the Democratic Party are basically Republicans. And sometimes more literally than people realize, like literally the Republican Party will take over the Democratic Party. Now, as a Senate candidate, have you had access to the demographic data, like a clear how many
Yeah.
Democrats, Republicans, and Independents there are in the state of Arkansas?
Yeah, I mean, it's majority Republican, of course. I believe it's like 35% Republican. We were like 30% Democrat and around 30% independents. So,
That
you know,
could really go
yeah,
any way, even
it
though a lot
really
of those
can.
cities are going to be leaning Republican.
Yeah, and honestly, my opponent, Tom Cotton, he ran against Mark Pryor, who was a Democrat, who was the incumbent before. So, you know, we actually weren't even a red state until about 6 years ago when it flipped over, when the Koch brothers threw in $8.5 million and started purchasing elections over here. And I think really, I'm a progressive independent. And as a progressive independent, I do support things like Medicare for all, the federal decriminalization of cannabis, including nationally expunging cannabis-related crimes, and the Green New Deal and taking on the climate crisis. I'm a working class guy. I'm a student. I've been through, you know, lows and ups, and I've been through a lot of things that, you know, people here in Arkansas are going through. So I can kind of empathize. I can understand the struggles. And because I can understand what everyone's going through, because I've been through it, I think that I'll be better able to look at legislation and see how it's going to affect us. We have,
Interesting, you know, and that's something we really do need from our representatives right now, because we have these people. We're having this new CARE Act extended, the HEROES Act, which is, I had no idea that 501c6s were viewed as heroes by so many people. The lobbyists, they're really making it happen right now.
yeah.
That's sarcasm, just in case.
Well, what a lot of people don't realize is our legislators, most of them, almost 100% of the time, they don't write legislation. A think tank writes legislation and they just market it. They're just used car salesmen. And, you know, we need legislators that are actually going to work on legislation that's going to help their own constituents. I have a really cool idea, a unique thing with my campaign that I'm doing, where my constituents can actually submit a legislative idea, and then I'll post it and people can vote on whether it's a good or a bad idea. And one time per month, 12 times per year, I will submit a bill created by my constituents, giving them a direct voice in the legislative process.
There is someone who tried to do something similar to that a while back, and it was too successful, if I remember correctly. So I just advise, if you get the opportunity to set up something like that, make sure you put good safeguards in place to make it a manageable system, and that you don't get brigaded, because
Absolutely,
that's a real good, really good idea. Like, I'm just not going to do this anymore, and that's a terrible thing to happen. So that sounds great. I mean, I really hope that, you know, even when you talk about an independent, and people are like, oh, can an independent win? Can a thing? And da 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 da. They get into these like tailspins of conversations, and you have to say, well, but there's no Democrat in the race.
yeah, which makes it a really unique race.
Yeah, I think that's a big statement, especially when you're talking about a Democrat held the seat not that long ago, and we're still coming off the Never Hillary movement, which is actually stronger in Arkansas than people realize.
Yeah.
Like,
A lot of people in Arkansas do love Hillary, but nowhere near as many people that love Bill Clinton.
oh yeah, no, definitely. That's something that I've actually heard. Like Arkansas, no, not just in Arkansas though, with Bill Clinton, because he did the really smart thing. And I've interviewed a couple of city reps or state reps in California about this, and how he was the one who gave so many people their opportunity. And I know he's unpopular with some people in the progressive communities, but you can't really talk about Arkansas and without talking a little bit about Bill Clinton and what he's done there.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, he did a lot of good things for our state here. And I really think we have a good chance. The GOP, they made a huge mistake when they blackmailed our Democrat out. A huge mistake. Because before, I would be splitting the progressive and Democratic vote with that candidate. But now that I don't have to worry about splitting that vote, and then on top of not only just getting him out of the race, they pissed off a lot of Democrats. I mean, they were really pissed off about what happened. And that really helped me get basically nearly all of the Democratic support overnight. So right there, that's 30% of the vote that I don't even have to fight for. I really don't want to be the candidate. Vote for me because I'm not Tom Cotton. But that's kind of what it's going to come down to.
I'll be honest, that's a very popular strategy with these types of Democrats right now. So as much as you're like, oh, as a progressive, we shouldn't do that. Yeah, but you're in Arkansas and you don't have a Democratic candidate, and you're not Donald Trump. You might as well just be like, I'm not Donald Trump. And people are like, yeah. And so I want to say this. Here's the deal. We got to wrap this up.
Okay.
I like you. I like you. I walked into this, won't lie. I walked into this a little nervous. And I think that you're a candidate that's worth putting some energy into. I think that's a good opportunity to get progressive gains in Arkansas. You don't get these opportunities a lot where Democrats aren't running for a race, whatever it is. And if you can't get in with the Democratic Party, this is a great way to leverage that relationship. I would like to say you still have to figure out a way to cross that gap, because, you know, not being a guy will get you 30% of that 30%. But you need like the 70 to 80% of it.
Oh yeah. Well, I spoke at the Green Party's national convention. I think the Green Party's really happy with me. They haven't given me an official endorsement, but I talked to them all. So I've got, you know, the Green Party. I've got a lot of independents. Medicare for All being on my platform helps a lot. A lot of people, when I talk to them about it, they're like, oh, no Medicare for All. And within 5 minutes, they're like, wow, if Bernie could have explained it to me the way you just did, I would be supporting Bernie right now, kind of thing. You know, federal decriminalization of cannabis is extremely important. Nationally expunging cannabis-related crimes. Here in Arkansas, we just authorized a new prison for LaSalle, $169 million to house 500 people. We could just expunge 500 possession charges here in Arkansas and save $169 million. So many people's lives are going to be changed by this type of legislation. So that helps a lot as well. And that helps with a lot of Republicans. Now, I am pro Second Amendment. I carry my sidearm every day. Because of that, that also helps with conservatives who are worried about, you know, a Democrat coming in and taking their guns. So, and there are a lot of Republicans that hate Tom Cotton, that don't like him, but they would rather not vote than vote for a Democrat. And a lot of those people are paying attention to my campaign now. And I think that's going to help a lot as well. So I have groups all around the place. You know, I've got Republicans, conservatives, liberals, Democrats. I've got libertarians. I've got all sorts of a wide variety of people supporting me right now. And I think just being able to bring people together like that is going to help a lot in the long run. And we're going to see on November 3rd that, you know, that's a campaign winning strategy right there. You got to bring people together. Yeah,
you got to build that community. I mean, we, by the way, if you're seeing this, I do got to do plug for our stuff. We were just talking about that in an interview that we did with the National Progressive Party, and we had a rep from the National Progressive Party and the Australian Progressive Party and a rep from Nation Builder, and we were talking about American politics and building community and how to get involved. And, you know, listening to you talk right now, Dan, you know, I hear you hitting all the notes we hit in that conversation. So if you're interested in hearing more about these ideas, feel free to go check that out. It should be up by the time this is up. So on that note, Dan, you are really fantastic, and I really love how you plugged yourself there at the end so well. I hope that more people will be doing more things with you.
Well, I would like to just finish up real quick on make sure you check out replacetomcotton.com. That's my website. I actually wrote a short autobiography, so you can kind of get to know me, where I grew up, who I am, and how I became who I am. You know, check out my website. There's a bunch of cool stuff on there. I've got, you know, a bunch of unique ideas. You can actually go on there and go to the donation spent tab and see where I've spent every single dollar in my campaign. So I'm trying to have complete financial transparency, and I think you'll really enjoy it.
I like that. I mean, it's scary to let people know how little or how much you rate, depending on where the number is. But on the other end, I really like the transparency. It's just like putting your FEC stuff in just an easier to read spreadsheet, right?
Yeah. 100%. And a lot of people don't want to just go through FEC records, that's for sure.
Oh, no, it hurts your eyes. It's the worst.
So yeah, replacetomcotton.com.
Right. Okay, say that one more time.
Replacetomcotton.com.
Yeah, it's for replacetomcotton.com. It's the I'm Not Tom Cotton website. So, no, I'm kidding. Is it Dan? It took you a second to get that joke. All right, we're there now. So I want everyone to check this out. We have been doing a lot of interviews with the National Progressive Party, a lot of talk with them, what's going on, and there's a real movement. I think the movement for independent in general, independent candidates, and whatever it's going to be, I think it's stronger now than it was in 2016. I think that what the Democrats just did here, in the whole country. This last time was just totally unacceptable. And I was like really deeply entrenched in it, being like, you guys are messing up everything. So I look forward to more candidates like you, and I hope people are going to get involved. Dan, thank you very much for being here with us today.
Oh, thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate this opportunity, and you have a good night and enjoy that beautiful weather out there in LA.
Oh my God, that's why we got to wrap this up. I got to get out of this suit. I'm like, I forgot to set the plan up. I'm dying over here. So that's going to be it for us, guys. I'm John Ford. This has been Progressive Insider. Good night.